Okay, so now we're on to the hourly rate calculator. We figured out what our fixed overhead is. We figured out what our variable cost is. We figured out the money we need to get back for investing in the company. And we also figured out what the minimum salary requirements are as being an owner-operator, an employee of your company here. So you'll see the tally of all those numbers on here. In your sheet, you will have your own numbers, whatever they may be. Now, in a working year, how many days are there? Well, it's 52 days in a week. In the standard business week, there are 5 days, so that's 260 days. But the reality is we don't work. Well, maybe if you're an owner, you probably work 7 days a week, like most of us do. I'm not saying that you're not going to work more hours than that, but basing your numbers on how you bill out your clients is based on a standard 40-hour working week. But you're also not working all 52 weeks, so it's not 260 working days. You're going to have vacation days. There's going to be holidays. For us, we only pay the 6 majors: Christmas, New Year's, Memorial Day, Labor Day, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. But there are vacation days. There are going to be days where a couple of my employees both had kids this year. They took off a couple of weeks for newborns. They got to go to the doctor, all that kind of stuff. You're never going to get that. So the total, actually, this should be adjusted right here. The total, it's 240. There are 240 work days in a year. But all of those work days and all those work hours are not efficient. Is there anybody here that has an employee, or even themselves, that they pay for 8 hours, that they actually get 8 hours worth of work out of? The answer is no, because there's no such thing. They'd be a robot, and they'd be a robot that never needed maintenance. That's not the reality of it. There's always something happening. There's somebody walking because maybe your shop setup isn't that good. There's a delivery coming in. Somebody's got to go to the bathroom. Somebody's talking to somebody else about what they did over the weekend. You'll never have 100% efficiency out of yourself or all your employees. If you actually look about 3/4 of the way down the page, you'll see the value added efficiency ratio. On the spreadsheet, there's actually a pop-up on this. This is how efficient, out of a 40-hour work week, how efficient are you? The top 1% of the companies, if you take a look at a company like Toyota, they actually run, I believe they're at 72%. Out of a 40-hour work week, they get like 28.8 hours worth of billable time out of each employee. The national average, U.S. average for manufacturing, this is just across the board manufacturing, is actually it's at 40% or less. So that means out of every 40 hours that you pay an employee, you're actually only getting 16 hours worth of work out of them, and that includes yourself. With that said, you can't figure you're only going to get 16 hours out of an employee a week and charge quadruple that to make up all the money. Your hourly rate is going to be like $300 an hour. It's impossible. So what I have put in, as I put the factor in at 75%, we base all of our billings, and when we calculate jobs and we do estimates, we calculate that we have 30 hours a week per man working in the shop, and that needs to cover all 40 hours a week, all 52 weeks a year, to cover their vacations, holidays, all that kind of stuff. I have 30 hours a week over 40 weeks a year. So the loaded shop rate, the first one is going to be how much does your operation cost to run every single hour. Shop rate is $500. Based on a 40-hour work week, it would actually, this company example here would be $667. So the reason I broke this out separate from the employees is for 2 reasons. First off, obviously you see the next line here is floor employees. Billable employees, it comes out with your actually hourly rate per person. But my point of showing that big number is for this. When you think about when something goes wrong here, or there's a mistake that happens in your company, something needs to get remade, it's not the single person that's doing that. You're losing, if you lose a half a day to remake something, you're losing a half a day based on that loaded shop rate. You're losing a half a day of production because there's no such thing as a time machine. You're never going to get that time back. You're either going to have to pay overtime or work extra hours or somehow recoup that money, and to do that, you're going to have to lay out more money. So when you start, this is the number I want you to focus on, is loaded hourly rate, when you start thinking about making efficiencies, making improvements in your company, because that's how much it costs you to run your business. And that's pretty relevant. Our business actually, it's basically $25,000 a week. It's $5,000 a day to run. So it's crazy when you think about all the time adding up here. What I have in quotation, it says floor employees. What that actually should say is billable employees. The larger your operation, the more people you're going to have in overhead positions, work in the office, doing engineering, bookkeeping, sales, ordering, dealing with vendors, that kind of stuff. And if you're really big enough, you may have a person or multiple people who do nothing but act as helpers, maybe sweep the floors. We have a guy full-time who his job is to sweep the floors and empty out the garbage and load trucks and all that kind of stuff. So we actually have more than 6 people. But when I bid jobs, we bid it on those 6 people who were actually bidding out for it. You'll see now the next 2 numbers, this 83.45 and 111.27. We don't bid anything time and materials. It's just not the kind of work we do. We do contract bidding. We'll get something and we do a proposal, and then we'll do it for that fixed cost. With that said, there's always somebody asking for something, or maybe there's some extras we got to do. I will charge them the every hour rate, that 83.45 or whatever that number may be for you. I never show them that loaded man rate. I'd rather charge somebody 8 hours at $83 an hour, and then 6 hours at $111. The dollar amount's exactly the same, but the customer perspective is you never want to tell clients that you bid. They don't want to know it. They don't need to know it, and you don't want to charge them the higher number. You don't want to let them know you're charging them the higher number. But the reality is, when you're figuring out a job, you're going to figure it on 6 hours a day at whatever this rate is right here. Yours is going to vary. The more employees you have, the lower that cost is going to be, because I'm going to go back a couple of slides here. Actually, probably too much. Oh, it's on this slide. I'm dumb right here. Fixed overhead cost. So the fixed overhead cost on this company here is $96,000. That's fixed. That's not going to go up. If we get up to 10 employees, 12 employees, 15 employees, 20 employees, the hourly rate's going to go down because we're splitting those fixed costs amongst more people. The variable overhead is going to go up in the labor department, but our vehicles are not going to be going up. The more employees you add, the lower your operational expenses are per employee. So a lot of you, when you run these numbers, you may see a number on here that's just astronomical, $150, $175, $200 an hour. There's a couple reasons that could be. Either you're a small operation, you're a 1-man or 2-man operation, and you have a much larger shop that's set up that has the ability to have a lot more people running out of it to be able to produce a lot more. So basically, you just don't have enough sales to justify and spread those costs out. Or you were, maybe before the economy took a dump a couple of years ago, you were a big operation, maybe you were 20. Then you got down to 10, but you didn't shrink the rest of your expenses down. So you need to either increase sales and spread that across more employees, or you should really be doing both simultaneously, becoming more efficient, getting a leaner operation. So that's the thing, is how efficient are you? There are a lot of ways to be efficient. There's two things that matter, is how much sales do you have, and how much are they coming in your pipeline, and how efficient, how many mistakes do you make, how are your procedures, how does everybody know what everybody else is doing, can everybody fill in everybody else's shoes when the job's going on, increase efficiencies. Okay, now we go into materials and supplies. So we just covered everything. Let me say this, this is one way to figure out all your costs for doing a business. I have talked to some bigger commercial guys who they'll spread their overhead cost. They'll spread these costs here, all of these costs across their board, including on materials. I do not do that. We do a pretty varied product line, but we come in pretty consistent that our material costs average about 20 to 23% of job costs. So I spread all of my overhead across labor only. Larger commercial operations, they like to spread their costs across materials and supplies, and they have a very good reason for that. The reason is that a lot of commercial jobs, the material amount may be much higher. If you're doing let's say a lobby for a hotel, and it's one of these really grand hall entrances, maybe 30, 40 feet tall, and they have a huge reception desk, and there's panels just on Z-clips running up a wall. Well, the job may be $60,000, but the labor is very low because it was just, you bought sheet goods, you threw it on the CNC edge band, and you finished it. So there's not a lot of labor involved. So maybe that $70,000 job was $40,000 or $50,000 worth of materials. So there's a very logical reason to spread those operating expenses across everything. For us, I find it simpler and easier to spread it all across the labor only. With that said, we do still mark up materials and supplies. So anyway, what you're going to do when you put your forecast numbers in here, you're going to put in your forecast numbers for the following year for all those other categories. And what you're going to do is you're going to go through your books from last year, and you're going to actually take out and figure out what you bought in materials and what you bought in supplies. Close is good. When we bid a job, but I was talking about the efficiency ratio, 6 hours. In labor, we don't figure loading or unloading a truck. I don't figure bathroom breaks. We figure out how many hours are we actually going to be working on a job and make sure we recoup those costs on that 75% efficiency. It's the same theory goes towards materials and supplies. When we bid a cabinet job or a millwork project, we don't figure out, I don't calculate how many sheets of sandpaper we're going to use, or how many screws, or how many ounces of glue, or how many strainers for the spray booth filtering out finished materials, or how many filters in the booth fan we're going to go through. That's broken out separately. So you want to go in there and figure out what are the base costs, what are the material costs, the core expenses, your sheet goods, your solid woods, your finishes, your hardware, and major cost components of a job. In one category, that's going to be your big number. Everything else, all the small stuff, is going to go in this. This is your supplies. And you're going to put that number in here. It's going to automatically calculate your markup. So basically, for every $100 in raw materials, you need to get $108.28 to cover all these other small stuff. And will be done automatically. Okay, so this is now going. This is going to be added on. This is going to give you your forecast numbers for the following year.